Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending when you're listening to this slide presentation of the Cisco Information Technology Essentials. That is the Cisco ITE. Okay, welcome to this module. We've gone through module 1 module up to module 11, or rather module 10. So we're going to be looking at module 11, module 12, module 13, and the last module, which is module 14. So this is quite a very long module. Everyone here have access to the Cisco Learning Management platform. So if you don't have, make sure you made your payment. We'll sign you up on the platform that have a more elaborate, detailed explanation of most of the components or most of the content of this course. So this slide is just what we call the instructor material instructor slide, which is the abridged version of what you have as a student on the LMS. So this is a very long module. So I'll try as much as possible to be fast, to be very swift, and touch on most of the most important aspects of this module as we move on. Okay, the course starts somewhere at about, these are just the pre-course material. Okay, here, right? Windows configuration. So one of the things we want to learn is we want to understand the different versions of operating system when it comes to Windows. Yes, you can have Windows um 95. For instance, I use Windows 95, Windows 98, Windows 2000, Windows MEXP, then Windows 7, or rather Windows Vista before you have Windows 7, right? So all of those operating systems are not considered here. So more or less some of the most important ones that you can bother yourself about, because you can still find them around, is Windows 7, Windows 8, 8.1, and 10. They want to understand some of the features of the Windows desktop. So we want to see running processes. Most of us running this course are doing cybersecurity program. And for instance, one of the tools we looked at during the digital forensic course is the sys internal. So the sys internal have several tools. But here for an ordinary PC user, you want to understand what are the processes, what are the things running underground on my system, like all of the softwares running, the services running, the programs running. Because for instance, if you have a malware, it's going to run, some of them can run on the background. So, or if your system gets to freeze, how do you stop some of the programs that have freezed? The task manager is a very important tool you can use to achieve that. And of course, the files, folders, and application. We're going to be looking at control panels. We're going to be looking at system administration. There are several tools and utilities we have that can help us as IT managers, as computer repair managers, maintenance engineers, help us manage our PC. Then of course we have the CLI, the very basic commands that every PC engineer, every PC technician is supposed to be able to understand, like your IP config, your CHDSK, that's your check disk, your ping. Ping will help you get ICMP messages, Internet Control Messaging Protocols, and several other commands that you should be able to familiarize yourself with. Then we're going to look at networking, Windows networking, right? This is not a networking course proper, but this is your IT essentials for Cisco, which is equivalent to the Comptia A plus, right? But you should be able to understand some basics when it comes to networking. Of course, we're going to conclude with preventive maintenance and for our different operating systems. And of course, then troubleshooting. Okay, let us start with some of the very basic things: Windows Desktop and File Explorer. So yes, Windows started since 1985, and you've had up to 25 versions, right? It comes in either 32-bit or 64-bit. Windows 10 is amongst the new, but you still have Windows 11 in the market. You have some PCs that are running Windows 11, right? So, but most of the guide we have here is of the very stable version of Windows 10. So Windows 7 started sometime around 2009. It was a this is one of my best operating system because it was very stable. It extended for a very long time compared to other versions. Of course, you also have Windows 8. I didn't like this Windows because this was about the time that Microsoft acquired Nokia. Then they tried to make both their phones and their PCs to look same so that you could have touchscreen. You now have this box-like kind of phone interface. Then you have Windows 8.1, of course, then Windows 10. So this is an overview of when they were released and some of their important features. Like if you see Windows 7, 2009, 10, 11, 12, up to about 4 years. But you see between 8, 8.1 and 10, it's just roughly about 2, 3 years. So, but this is spanned for a very long time. So it was a very, very well accepted, widely accepted operating system, Windows 7. So this is how it looks like, and this default theme is called Aero. I loved using this theme. It's very simplistic. If I don't use this, I use a very blank screen. Okay, then you have the Windows deck. It's desktop. This is what it looks like. Somebody brought a PC to my office, I think yesterday, and we're trying to know what operating system it was like. I think we couldn't uh, know what it was like until we booted it. And once it came to this screen, I said this is Windows 8. So why? I know this is how Windows 8, the tile screen. That's how it looks like. And of course, those Windows 8 mobile phones, this is how they also come. Windows 8.1 was, to be candid, was actually a mess, right? It tried to improve on Windows 8.1, but it didn't stay too long. I don't know if it stayed up to a year or two, and now we now give birth to Windows 10. So don't forget to check the video demonstration of the Windows 10 operating system, the desktop icons, the start buttons, the live tiles, the taskbar, the notification areas. Don't forget to go to your Cisco Learning Management System, log into the Networking Academy, and watch these very short videos. It's about 3, 4, 5 minutes long. Now, for the Windows 10 operating system, you have this as your shortcuts, you have this as your applications, then you have all of your applications, and you have your store. So from here, you could install apps that you didn't have within your PC. So if you come to your search bar and you search for an application, if you don't have it, normally it will pick it up from this store, which you can directly install while provided you are connected to the internet. So this is how the Windows 8 and 8.1 looks like. It still has its own store also. So we call that the app screen. This is your app screen. So for the Windows 8, it's a very nice PC. It has a start, this Windows button, so you could search for other files, softwares, application, programs, or whatever. You could search for it here. Yes, the tax bar. For your tax bar, for instance, you understand your tax bar is just what you have below the frame of the whatever program you're running on, and you can actually move your tax bar around. You could replace it, you could toggle it right, you could toggle it left, you could that several modes. How do you get to that place? You just go to your search bar, you go to properties, you go to start menu, you go to customize, then you're able to do that. Okay, so don't forget also make sure on your Cisco Learning Management System you watch the very short video that describes what the tax manager looks like. So the tax manager is a very important tool set for IT technicians that can help them check their app history, see what is running at startup. For instance, at times if you have a malware infection, most of those guys are going to go on startup and system registry and hide themselves. So once you just start up your system, they're going to run first. They're going to run on the background. So you could check what is on your startup tab and disable or delete most of those things. For instance, instead of using this, I use a software called Cleaner. C Cleaner. It's a very nice tool. It can help you do defragmentation, disk defragmentation. We looked at disk defragmentation in one of the earlier modules. It can also help you clean up your PC. It can help you see what you have on startup. It can help you also uninstall very stubborn apps that wouldn't want to uninstall, especially if you have a malware infection, right? So that's what the tax manager does. If you want to get to tax manager, a very shortcut is Control Alternate Delete. You see option to get to your tax manager and you can see all of these services. Please watch the video. Short video is a demonstration of what it can do. Okay, tax manager functions, like I said earlier on, processes, performance, app history, startups. So shows the processes that automatically begin during Windows startups. At times, you see some PCs, they are very slow when they start up. Your system starts up, it loads Skype, loads an update of a particular, maybe 2 3 4 application, maybe your Windows software, maybe your Windows update, maybe your Adobe Readers or Reader update. It loads a lot of updates part of your application, loads several things. And imagine you starting up your PC and your PC does not come to desktop for like the next 10 15 minutes. What you need to watch out for is your startup apps. So those apps that you have at startup, might need to remove them and delete them from startup, so that once your PC boots up, it comes to desktop. So it's only when you need an application that you call it up. Or for somebody running torrent, so at startup, torrent comes up and it's loading or might be downloading or might be seeding. So that is a very important aspect that you can use your task manager to take care of, or the software I talked about, which is C Cleaner. So this is how the task manager looks like in Windows 7. Then your file explorer. Now, your file explorer is typically, if you go to your hard disks, you can use Windows E. Windows E will bring you to your computer area. Then from that area, you can now navigate your desktop, your downloads, your documents. So these are your folders, your main folders, right? So you need to learn how to do file management. So in Microsoft, this is always what to call our ribbon, right? The ribbon and the group. For instance, for this software, I'm using the WPS Office instead of the Microsoft Office, but it follows through the same arrangement. So this is what we call the ribbon. Everything here is your ribbon. So this is group, group, group. So this the marketing line tells me this is my group, this is my group, this is my group. Of course, these are all my menus, right? Same thing for the Windows operating system. Most of their systems are built that way. Like you see, this is the clipboard uh, widget. This is the organize. This is the new. If I want to create a new folder and the rest. So this is how the Windows 7 File Explorer system is done. And don't forget to watch the very short video in your LMS, because this is just a screenshot here, but in your LMS, you can play the videos. Now, don't forget that this video is just a high-level explanation of most of the things that you're going to learn in your LMS. So it's good you can watch this video and you go back to your LMS and you can see things in more and more details. Okay, now, like I said, with your Windows E, you can come to this. Even uh, with your current Windows 8 or your Windows 10 or even older Windows, with Control E, you can get to this point. Now, there are some applications that you might not be able to run if you don't run them as an administrator, right? Administrative permission is very important in running some kind of application or some kind of files or some kind of programs. So all you just need to do is to right click and you will see run as administrator. This is very common in your Windows 7. Windows library. So these are what will help you do proper file management. Proper file management. So there are some default folders you have in Windows. Your camera roll, especially if your system have a camera, documents, music, pictures, saved pictures, videos. It doesn't mean you cannot create your own libraries. You can't create your own folders. For instance, for an IT person, you might have a folder for music. You can have a folder for your IT according to your field of study. You can have a folder for your office work. So it just helps you to do proper file management. So, but these are your default libraries. So directory structures. So you have your home directory, your C directory. You have your user, you have your admin, you have documents. You have level 1, level 2, level 3, up to down. So this C is what we call the root directory. Are you there? So similar to this also, file extension. The only thing you should understand is that for every file you have, I don't mean folder don't have extension. Yeah, some folders can be zipped. But I'm saying if you want to know your file extension, you could tap here to see extension, or you simply just right click and view properties, right? You just right click, you're going to be able to view properties. Once you do that, you're able to tell what your file extension. Your file can be a PDF, it can be a PNG, uh, portable document format, that's PDF. I think PNG should be portable notable graphics or something. Then you can have your GIF, you can have your bitmap, you can have your doc, you call it docx, that is for files, Microsoft document files that are from I think 2000 and above. You can have zip, you can have several file formats, you can have mp3, mp4. So if you right click and view properties of that particular document, you're able to tell what's the file extension. So the file extension is the type of file into consideration. So we have what we call the file attributes. Developers normally say CRUD, or when we interactive with database, we say CRUD operations. That is that is CRUD. So create, read, update, delete. So typically, there are things you could create a file, you could be able to read a file, you could update a file, you could delete a file. But for Windows here, we're talking about file attributes. If you still right click and check the properties of the file, there are some files that are just read only. You can just only read the file. You cannot make edits. Then you have the file will be archived the next time that the disk is backed up. So you have all of these file attributes when you right click, and you can actually change them. If you tap here, right click a file and you tap read only, it then means that you will not be able to make changes to it. If you tap here and say hidden, it then means that it will not be shown here. Of course, there are several ways. If this was within a folder, you can see that. You can right click that folder and say you want to show hidden files. Of course, it's going to come out. Don't forget, all of these things I just explained is in a very short video within your LMS. Please check through and watch. Okay, configure Windows with control panel. So control panel is a very central app, central software. It's like the engine room for your whatever operating system you're running on, whether you're running on Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, Windows 10. So it has two different views. This is what we call the settings view, and this is what we call your control panel view. Both of them are control panel view actually, but this is more or less the category view, and this is what we call the small view. So this categorizes all of the things you could do within your control panel into categories, into areas. For instance, privacy. So you can see things like firewall, you can see things like antivirus, you could see things like all of that is going to be under here. Then you see things like phone, you see all of the things that has to do with your mobile phone, tethering, hotspot, airplane mode, you see all of that there. So but here you have everything detailed. So all you just need to do is to toggle between it here. Once you come into your control panel, you can toggle it here, category view and small view, and you're good. Okay, so like I said, this is the category view, this is the small icon view. So you need to understand your categories in your system and security, your Windows firewall, your security, your softwares, your antivirus, your alert system. If you have a if your settings are not properly configured, that's where you can get a message and say, okay, please, you need to update your antivirus, your Windows Defender is not turned on, your firewall is not on. So you have all of that and your alert system. Of course, your network and internet, that's where you can do all of the configuration with respect to your network and internet. Then you have hardware, you have programs, you have user accounts, you have ease of access, right? For instance, there's what we call the virtual keyboard, right? There's what we call the virtual keyboard. Okay, it's called the on-screen keyboard. So the on-screen keyboard helps you to use, right? Especially for people that have physical or perception, maybe hearing, they need hearing aid or they cannot see. So the screen, or for instance the JAWS software, all of that will help for people that have such kind of disability or challenge. Of course, for the clock and region, that's where you can set up your time, your date, so that it's within the same time zone with you. So user accounts, if you go to the user accounts, you could create accounts, you could create an administrative account, you could create a user account. Now, you call this the UAC, user account control. So Depending on where you toggle it, that would tell what kind of things your system is going to allow. If it's in always notify, it then means it's going to not allow so many things to just run. But if it is down, it then means that it will allow most things to install, and it can make your system very very vulnerable to attack. Yes, credential manager. So this is where you could edit your credentials for your PC usernames and password. Then your sync center, if you need to sync, for instance, if you are using a mobile phone or you have another application, Microsoft, let's say cloud service, and you need to sync between your Microsoft Drive and your PC, this way you can do all of that. Network settings, right? Very, very critical, very, very important. For most of us that will not go on and do a proper networking course, for instance, we have the CCNA 1, which is introduction to networking. We have CCNA 2, which is routing, switching, and wireless essentials. We have CCNA 3, which is enterprise networking, um, automation, security and automation. It's called ENSA, enterprise networking, security and automation. Then if you're done with CCNA 1, CCNA 2, CCNA 3, then of course you cannot do CCNP, Cisco Networking uh, Professional. So that's the professional level for networking. So this part is just like a preamble to networking. So you could always check up, and if you have any issues, please make sure you use the mentorship group for questions. Okay, internet options. Most of the times, if you need to configure, especially during the time where you have dial-up, right? Or if you need to install, or if you need to enable JavaScript on your browser, right? Or if you need to allow some apps, especially for instance for Internet Explorer, this is where you could come and do that. Or if you want to decide what your home page is. For instance, some people like their homepage to be a news site like CNN. Some people like their homepage to be Gmail. Some people like their homepage to be a browser like google.com. So you could come to internet option and decide for each of these stage, your general, your security, your privacy, your content. You could come and tweak all of these things and you okay and you save that, right? For instance, this is the general tab. Here you could decide what your home page. So anytime you load this particular browser, it's going to load with cisco.com. Here in privacy, you could indicate what security settings that you want. Do you want to be very paranoid? Do you want to be a little bit prudent, or do you want to be promiscuous, right? These are the different type of policies you can have. Then of course you have internet option, privacy. So you could come here, tweak most of these things depending on how you love it to be. Okay, that's that. At home group. Okay, now if you are going to send your screen to another PC, it's very critical, it's very important that, especially when it comes to resolutions, because you can have a PC with a resolution of let's say 1000 times let's say 700, that is in pixels, I mean. Then you are sending to a projector that is, or another PC that is, let's say, a 4K definition, very, very high definition. You might need to come here and change some of these settings so that you can actually see the screen. And of course, don't forget that you must make sure that you have your video drivers installed. We said a driver is a software that helps another software to communicate with the hardware, right? So if you are trying to showcase maybe what you have on this software to uh, another PC, right? So that driver, that's hardware I have, which is my video card, right? That is this guy here, my video card, that hardware, or my wireless card. How do I make sure that I can connect that can communicate to my operating system? You need a device driver for that. So that device driver must be installed before you can now start projecting from your PC to maybe a projector. So if you try doing Control P, which is project on a Windows system, and it's not working, it might mean that you don't have the device driver for that particular system installed. So please check the device manager and check for display settings. Now make sure that you have the device driver installed. If it's not installed, Google the manufacturer. Let's say if it is HP, if it is Dell, if it is Toshiba. Check their site. Just pick up the get this your system specification, get the operating system, and get the software driver for that particular system. Install it, and that is going to fix your issues. So these are different resolutions that you can have. You can have 120 to 1080. Then you can have also higher definition, or for older systems with low video card memory, you can have something lesser. Power option. So what happens, like yesterday, I was downloading a particular virtual machine for a forensic lab, and I needed to, it was already 12 midnight, and I needed to download about 3.4 gig, and it was already 12 minutes and I needed to sleep. I don't need to monitor the download or know whether it's downloading properly. What I did was to make sure that my PC is not going to go to sleep, right? So what I did was that I came to power options. You could just put a search in your on your Windows, search, say power options. Once you come here, you could choose what power buttons do, or you could choose when to turn the display off. So I tapped on this button and I made sure that I said the display should never turn off. The system should never go off. So I have an inverter system at home, so I don't have power issues. So I want to make sure that whether it's on battery, whether it's on power, the system never goes off, so that my 3.4 gig file can completely download. And I went to bed. When I woke up by I think 4 5 in the morning, everything was completely downloaded. So that's one good advantage of understanding your PC and making sure. For instance, some people's system, they don't know by default is on display is to turn off after 10 minutes, or PC is to hibernate after 10 minutes. If you don't know, you start downloading that particular file, you go to bed, you come back, and your download is abruptly interrupted. So that's one use of your power options. Or at times, if you have power issues, maybe at home or in the office, you can say, okay, I want to exhaust my battery up to 10% or 5%. Please drain it till done, because I need a lot of hours of use of my PC. I don't mind when it is 1 2 years, I can replace the battery, but for now I need to be able to maximize my battery life, or rather my battery uh strength. So that way, you could come here and do your power plan, or change that your battery should be drained up to, let's say, 5% before it goes down. But somebody that want to be very economical, you can say, okay, if my system is on, I don't have power issues. So when it is 5%, sorry, when it is 50%, or when it is 40%, please, you can just hibernate my system once I'm not plugged in. That is, I don't have power. So these are the different power issues, and whichever that you choose will tell that you're going to maximize your battery performance, conserve energy, whichever. So you can only do that by configuring within your power options. So these are the things I just explained earlier on. Look at on battery. When I'm on battery, when I press my power button, do this. When I do this, do this. So you could configure when your system is to sleep, when it is to hibernate, when it's to turn off the display, when it's to shut down. You could configure everything. Okay, yes, my control panel item, I have my device. This is like a shortcut to go to most of these important aspects we've talked about before now. Yes, this used to be a norm, let's say 10, 15, 20 years ago, when PCs didn't have so much RAM. So one of the ways we can tweak the or increase performance of the system is to use part of the hard disks as RAM. Funny enough, yes. Windows used to have what they call the ready boost, but these days you could have systems. Most systems can go up to 16 gig RAM, so you might not need to bother about what is it called, trying to make a part of your hard disk to serve as RAM. So people can always upgrade their RAMs. Yes, most systems back then, systems most of the times, most systems, because you had more 32-bit systems, a lot of 32-bit systems. 64-bit systems were purely, they were completely rare, right? So, and for a 32-bit system, like we've learned in previous module, you cannot your RAM size cannot be more than 2 gig. Or is it 2 gig or 4 gig? Yes, I think 4 gig. Your RAM size cannot be more than 4 gig. But with a 64-bit system, I think you can go as much as even in terabytes of RAM, right? So that's one advantage for newer systems these days. Of course, you could go for 16 gig RAM, you could go for 64 gig RAM, you could go for 12 gig RAM, you can have an 8 gig and a 4 gig RAM in your two slots. And so this increasing performance is not so rampant these days. So I've talked about device manager. That's where you could go to see if you have your drivers installed or not. So printers, you could just search for printers. You could add a printer. Yes, add a printer or add a device. So there are two type of printers you can add to your PC. You can add a local printer or you can add a network printer, right? So for most of us that want to go into networking proper, you could take the CCNA2 or the CCNA3. Most of these things are discussed in great details. This is more or less um, IT essentials, like the course says it all. So you could install a printer in this local. So if I have a printer here, right here, so I will say add a printer and I will choose local printer. But if the printer is on the network, right, so it then means I don't need the printer to be connected to this particular system, provided that system is on a network and it was shared. When I mean on the network, it was connected to a system on the network and I am also on that network, we can actually share that printer. So what do you call a network? When you share, when you have two or more systems or devices connected together to share resources. And resources, one of the examples of the resources is devices, which can be a printer, it can be internet, it can be files, it can be any other resource. So when you talk about network doesn't it should not be limited to just internet. No, it can be a resource like printers. Sound, so you could go to this place and you decide what your sound is going to be when you click or when you have an error message or all of that. You just tap and select your sound and you say okay. Clock, your time. This is where you come to set your time, your region, your language. Program, so these are all of the softwares that you installed within your PC. So you want to make sure that for instance, at times you see that some programs are installed without your knowledge. This is where you come and check to see what you could remove, what you could install, and the software is going to give you option to either uninstall or change. Change means to repair. For instance, your Adobe Reader is not working properly. You could come here, tap on it, click on this. It's going to give you option for repair or change. Some softwares you can only uninstall them, you cannot repair them. Whereas some softwares you can actually repair them. So you could tap here. If you click on this button, it's going to tell you whether you could just uninstall and put a fresh copy or whether you can repair the installation. So updates, default programs. For default programs, for instance, you want to tell what is going to be your de facto program for opening some kind of files. For instance, for JPEG, which software do you want to open it? For HTML files and websites, what do you want to use to open it? Because you can have Chrome, you can have Internet Explorer, you can have Safari, you can have multiple browsers within your system. So here you cannot decide which is going to be the default. Troubleshooting, yes, most of the different aspects of your operating system have troubleshooting functions. So this is where you could come around that. Yes, this is Windows BitLocker function. So you could encrypt your hard disks, but be very sure so that you don't forget, else you're going to lose all of your files. Okay, system administration. So this has several utilities, right? Things like your device manager, your registry editor, your disk cleanup, your disk defragmentation, several IT essential utilities. This is where you find them. Like for instance, when you come to your computer management, just come to your PC, search computer management, it will bring you here. Once you click on this button, here you have device manager, you have disk management. For instance, if you want to partition your hard disk or you want to see if there are partitions within your system, partition I mean logical sections of your hard disk. So for every hard disk, you have the physical section and logical section. So if I have one hard disk of 500 gig, right, I can still divide it further so that I can have something like C drive and D drive. So if I divide it further, that other section is now they are now my logical section. So it's actually real, it's not physical, right? So you can check all of that within the disk management area. Okay, all of these are uh, very basic. For Windows memory diagnostics, so this happens during BIOS when your PC is starting up. So you can check your hard disks, you can check your memory, there are a few things you can check depending on the system's configuration. So while your PC is coming up, just check for how to enter BIOS for your system. Some PCs it can be F10, some PC can be F2, some PC can be a combination of two keys. Just Google it. Let's say if your system is HP 15, right? DX5. So just say HP 15 DX5, enter into BIOS. You see, you get to the HP site or any other support site where you can see the default uh, button to press when your system is just booting up to get into BIOS. So most of the times when you come into BIOS, there are different type of tests you can do. You can do your memory test, your hard disk test. You could test most of the different components here. More or less what your PC is going to do during a power on self test. Don't forget earlier on we talked about POS test, power on self test, which is your post test. Power on self test. So you can do several tests. Or for instance, if your PC, for some of us that are doing cyber security, that your PC cannot, that it gave you a message that you cannot install Oracle VirtualBox, or it cannot install Oracle VMware or Hyper-V, all of this virtualization software, you can come into BIOS and you activate that. So it's that same environment that you can use in doing your Windows memory test. So system information. So if you're on command prompt, you want to get full details about your information, you can just type msinfo32, right? You'll be there. Okay, what is important? Yes, registry, very, very risky. You don't want to tamper with most of the registry file. That's what have a good memory of everything that is within your PC. Yes. How do you get that? Through regedit. So you go to your search bar on Windows and you type regedit and you get to Windows registry. So your OS, your hardware, everything is here. So it's like the brain of your PC. If anything is tampered with, there was a time that I had a PC infection sometime in 2007. It was roughly about 12, 13, 14 years now, and it was a virus called, or will I call it a virus? No, I'll call it an adware. Malware is the word that tells us that anything that causes system malfunction is an malware. Malware, malicious software, right? So when you have a malicious software, you have several types of malicious software. So you have adware, scareware, spyware, ransomware, Trojan, and the rest. So this kind of malware is called adware, because what was the adware doing? It just throws up a message on my browser and tells you vote Raila Odinga, more or less like a political campaign. It was not causing any harm, so to say, to the PC, but it was killing time. It was killing system resources. It was delaying you. It will delay you when you want to work. So every 3 minutes, 5 minutes, it will open, just throw up your browser and say vote Raila Odinga, but it was embedded on the system registry. So typically, no antivirus will be able to catch that or get that. So I got a patch that would typically come on your system registry and just delete that file. So the registry is a very critical and important aspect of your operating system that you don't want to tamper with. So you have the Microsoft Management Console, you have your DX Diagnostics, especially for graphics. There you have several lab utilities. Yes, this is the one I talked about earlier on for your disk management. You see, these are the different logical drives for this particular one hard disk. This is another hard disk. Okay, so depending on what you see, your hard disk can be foreign, it can be healthy, it can be initializing, it can be missing, it can be online, it can have errors, it can be offline, it can be unreadable. So this is what each of these message that you see here, what they mean. Mounting a drive, most of the times you have an operating system and you have it in an ISO file, you want to mount it, you want to be able to use it to maybe drive or install on another system. So mounting drive refers to making a disk image readable as a drive, because if you don't mount it, you might not be able to read it, you might not be able to use it. Adding arrays, so this is more or less for servers, right, where you have stacks of disks uh, to be able to work as one. Disk optimization, yes, that sick cleaner I told you about can be able to do that, or you can use this particular utility under the disk management utility. So this check this, what it does is that it checks for error, and this defragmentation, what it does is that it sorts out your files. Imagine if you have 100 clothes and you just throw them into a particular room, into a particular house. You wear one shirt, you throw it inside the room. You have wear one shirt, you throw it after you've dry cleaned 100 shirts. Anytime you come to look for a particular file, it's going to be very difficult for you. So what this defragmentation means is that you now try to pick up those shirts, those files, and you sort them and arrange them so that anytime you're looking for a particular file, it's very easy for you to pick it up, right? So um but don't forget that you shouldn't do this defragmentation on SSD hard disks because they have their own controller and firmware. Okay, disk error checking. So that's that. What it does for the different operating system, what is the minimum requirement? Right? So for every operating system that you want to install, it will tell you this is what the minimum requirement is like. Are you there? So it also tell you what a recommended requirement is like. So for Windows 10, 8, 7, 8, and 10, with 2 gig memory, it's fine. But if you want to really enjoy your PC when it comes to speed, you want to have at least 4 gig. But for me, for instance, I'll prefer people to use 8 gig RAM on their PCs. For instance, if you are doing this cybersecurity course, we started with very basic cybersecurity fundamentals. We moved up to IT essentials. We started doing digital forensics. We started doing web security. You need to run several tools and applications. And if you need to do that, 8 gig to 16 gig will be your very basic, right? Then, while you're trying to do an installation, remember the title of this module is um, Windows configuration, right? How do we configure our system? We need to understand most aspects of our PC. You can do an attended, a silent, a clean, a network, or a scheduled installation, especially for newer operating system. Most of them you can schedule them as okay by so date. They can even send you a message, so you can schedule that particular installation as so date, so you can allow that upgrade. Okay, compatibility on installing a program, very very basic things. A PowerShell command line, yes. Just type CMD on your search bar. You come to this area. You should know about between 50 to 20, 30 command line uh, uh, utilities. Things like ping, like ipconfig, like chkdx, like and if you don't know most of these tools, you can just type help here. Once you come to this command line interface, just type help, right? It will give you a list of all the commands, and for each command you could type it and put a slash and put question mark, something like this. So if you when you come to this place, you could type help, right? And if it gives you all the different items, take for instance, it gives you things like ping, and you want to know how to use the ping command, you just do like this, right? It will give you all of the different ways you can use the ping command. Very, very important. Very, very important. Okay, okay, good. This is it. It's even here. So you have help, you have the command slash question mark. So you can get specific help with respect to this particular command. Look at, if you type help, these are all the commands that you're going to have. Look at the one I mentioned: chkdsk, check disk, check directory, or cd, that is change directory, call, cacls, break, attributes, association, color, and clear screen. So, and it has all of the description, so it shouldn't worry you. You could learn and familiarize yourself with all of those commands. Now, there is an there's a short video that describes all of these things I've explained, so please get to your LMS and watch them. Okay, is there anything? Okay, this is just example of like here we're trying to do directory. For instance, in my folder, when you say dir, you are saying directory. Please list all of the folder and files I have within this particular folder. When you are on C drive and you say D, but be sure that you have this D drive, it will move you to this particular D drive and you can change the directory. For instance, you have your C drive and you have two flash inserted. Maybe it gave the first flash D, give the next flash E. So while you're on this C drive, you can just say D colon. You're already here. You can say dir and you can see all of the files within that particular drive. Yes, there is a simple hands-on right on your LMS. So please go through it. And if you have questions, don't forget to ask. So all of this has been considered. So, networking basics. So we want to familiarize ourselves with some of this networking. Though, like I said, we have the networking course. So I'm not going to dwell much here. So you can take up any of the extended networking course and fully understand these things and be able to practicalize them. So you have the lab here video demonstration that tells you about that. Don't forget that you could share a drive, you could share a file, you could share even a CD drive, you could share a hard disk. All you just need to do is to right click that hard disk and you'll get to the share folder. But you should be on a network. If you're on a network, you can just right click properties, you see the sharing, tap on the sharing and you could click on share. Once you click on share, anybody within that network will be able to go to the network shares and see that particular hard disk. But you can indicate in your share properties what you want the person to be able to do, whether you want people to be able to read, or whether you want them to be able to change, or whether you want them to have full control. So you just indicate in all of this: full control, change, and read. If you say read, that means that they will only be able to read the files there. They cannot edit any of those files in that hard disk. I can remember it sometime very, very long ago, more than 10, 15 years, that we had a particular PC in we're trying to fix, and that PC didn't have CD-ROM. I remember I used another system, networked both of them via cable, and right clicked on the CD-ROM of the other system and shared it on the small network I've created. And I came on this newer system and I was able to install all the things I needed to install. That is a classical example of you sharing a CD-ROM. You can share a CD-ROM, you can share a file, you can share a folder. Okay, so like I talked about these printers, you could share printers. All you just need to do is just to right click and you share. So this is a demonstration of all of the things I just explained. So please and please make sure you get to the LMS, watch. If you have questions, please do ask. I think you have a demonstration here too that talks about all of the LMS, your network, and the rest, your IP config, on how to do that, how to test your network. For instance, you can test your network if whether you're connected to the outside world by just pinging 8.8.8.8, 8 in 4 places, right? That's the Google IP address. So if you test and you come back and you have results, it then means that you are connected to the internet. Most of the times when you are troubleshooting network issues, you want to test things across your OSI model. Our OSI model normally say, please do not take sweet potatoes alone. So physical layer, data layer, uh, um, transport layer. Did I get that? Let me type it out. Please do not take sweet potatoes always. So this is my physical layer. This is my data link layer. This is my network layer. This is my transport layer. This is my session layer. This is my presentation layer. And this is my application layer. This is my application layer. So as an IT technician, there are several of these commands you should be able to use. Like your ping command is just to get ICMP. ICMP is Internet Control Messaging Protocol. You can ping an IP address. You can even ping your website. You can come to your command line and ping your website. You're going to get a reply. So if your reply is 100%, it then means that you have connection. Traceout, you want to know the route between your PC and that particular. If you say traceout.soutechventures.com, it will tell you how many hops, how many servers you have between your network to where that website is hosted. Same thing with others. Okay, so don't forget to go through this. Is a video explanation, and you test run also. You have different types of connection. So WPA2 is more or less more safer. Most of these technologies can actually be cracked using most cracking techniques. Okay, VPN, Telnet, I have some of these things demonstrated here for you. I'm trying to make sure that I don't get past my 1 hour mark. Yes, troubleshooting, just like how we've talked about troubleshooting earlier on. Restore point is very important. For instance, if your PC have an issue, right, and you cannot log on to desktop or you have a crash, you can use restore point to get back to a previous date. Just on your search bar, type system restore. You come to this place, you next, next, next. You select a date that you want to go back to, and your system will do a rewind. But you um uh your files will not be tampered with, but your configurations and what is it called, and your software installations are going to be anyone that is of recent that you did after that particular restore date is not going to be gotten back. So system restore point does not back up personal files, or does it recover personal files that have been corrupted or deleted? Yes, if you have deleted files or corrupted files, it's not going to do that. All of the files you have in your system, you're still going to get back everything. And never mind, while you're trying to next and configure these particular settings, it will give you options to say if you want to keep your files or if you want to take away your files. You could do hardware backup. These are some of the utilities you should be aware of. This is a lab that demonstrates that. Then troubleshooting, just like we've been doing troubleshooting for all of the modules from module 1 up to module 10. Same process, right? You identify the problem, you establish a theory of a probable cause, then you start testing each of those things that you might think are the cause of the issue. Then you establish a plan, you document things, you take action, and you want to document your findings so that you can serve as your lesson learned. So I think that's the end of this particular module. I kept to 53 minutes. These are some of the things you've learned new. Soho for network, ISP, internet, extranet. So see you in module 12. Thank you very much.